Hello everyone, my name is Vienna and I've decided to write my research paper on false confessions. So, would you confess to a crime you haven't committed? Let me guess. The answer is no. Many people, most people actually, always say they would never confess to a crime they haven't done. But the truth of the matter is it happens a lot more than you may think. There's never a specific reason as to why someone would confess to a crime they haven't committed. It just varies. It could be a desire for a bad reputation, a desire to protect a loved one or a friend, or even just out of fear. There are so many people out there who actually have blackouts that can easily be made to believe that they committed a crime they haven't done. But in most cases, it's actually the police interrogation tactics that can make someone confess to a crime they have not committed. There's not many people who actually know about the police tactics that are permitted during these interrogations. The tactics police use work very, very well and can break any innocent person down. Now, I'm going to briefly discuss three main types of false confessions, what causes false confessions, and what types of offenders are more likely to falsely confess. So the first type of false confession is voluntary false confession. Now, this is when someone knowingly gives a response with little to no police pressure. An example is the desire to protect the perpetrator who actually committed the crime. The next confession is compliant false confession, which is when someone knowingly gives in to put an end to the interrogation or to receive a benefit or reward in exchange of a confession. Now, this is a type of confession that occurs when an innocent person surrenders to social pressure during interrogation and believes that the short-term benefit of a false confession will offset the long-term cost of the prolonged interrogation. A famous example of a compliant false confession is the 1889 Central Park jogger case, which I'm sure most of you guys know about. Now, this is the case with the 5 young suspects who were told they could end their lengthy and coerced interrogations in connection with the rape and murder of the female victim if they provided statements placing themselves at the scene and incriminating the others. The last main type of false confession is the persuaded false confession. This is when a false confession is knowingly given by an innocent suspect who comes to doubt the reliability of their memory and comes to believe that they actually committed a crime despite of no actual memory of it. Having done so, this type of confession is rare but exceedingly prejudicial when entered into evidence. Okay, so now that we know the three types of false confessions, let's discuss what can actually cause a false confession. There's no one specific cause and no non-logic or type of false confession. Police-induced false confessions result from a multi-step process and sequence of influence, persuasion, and compliance, and usually involve some kind of psychological coercion. There are three sequential errors which occur during a police-provoked false confession that can lead to a wrongful conviction. First, police misclassify an innocent person as guilty. Next, they presume them guilty using some kind of accusatory interrogation that involves lies about the evidence and repeated use of implicit and explicit promises and threats. Once the officer is able to obtain a false confession, they force the suspect to provide a post-admission report that they jointly shape, supplying the suspect with both public and non-public information of the crime. This has been referred to the misclassification error, the coercion error, and the contamination error. So, what types of offenders most likely to confess to a crime they didn't commit? There are some individuals with certain personality traits and dispositions that are more vulnerable than others, making them likely to confess. One of the biggest vulnerabilities a person can have is a legal misunderstanding. There are people who will sign a false confession simply because they just don't understand their legal rights and the situation that they're in, such as juvenile or individuals who may suffer from a disability and who are not very well educated. There are many cases where people have misunderstood their rights to remain silent or their right to counsel. Social science evidence suggests that the same vulnerability to false confessions seen in the youth population is present in populations with cognitive and intellectual disabilities. According to recent conducted studies, disorders such as depression, ADHD, increase the likelihood that an offender will falsely confess to a crime. So, as adamant and resilient as someone can be about never confessing to a crime they didn't commit, truth is there are times the result is different than expected after going through a very intense interrogation. The stressful and harsh interrogation process, manipulation, and lack of legal understanding can all lead to a false confession. Thank you.